Hello and welcome to Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Ja and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. We'll be discussing the Deferred Enforced Departure. That's the DED that has been extended or that has entered a winding down period. With me tonight to discuss the DED, I have Mr. Abdullahi Kiatamba. Abdullahi Kiatamba is joining us from Minnesota. He's the co-chair of the EULA Immigration Committee and also co-founder and CEO of the African Immigrant Services. Mr. Kiatamba, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Kiatamba, as I said, is the co-founder and CEO of the African Immigrant Services. Also to discuss this topic, I have Mrs. Anthony Patricia Minican. She'll be joining us by phone. Patricia, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Patricia is joining us from the state of Maryland, and she will be joining us by phone. She has established a law offices, that's in Wheaton, Maryland, in 1994, with a practice focused solely on immigration law. So we have our immigration lawyer, Attorney Patricia B. Minican, and also our refugee immigration advocate, Mr. Abdullahi Kiatamba. I'll start with you, Patricia, being an immigration lawyer. Just give us a brief synopsis of the DED and the TPS. What is that all about?
Yes, so TPS was the precursor to DED, and TPS is temporary protected status. Liberians received TPS 3 times, initially starting in the early 90s, and then through the remaining years. So basically what would happen is all persons who were in the US by a certain date would receive TPS, and then at certain intervals when TPS was renewed, any persons who had entered after the initial date but before the renewal would then get it. So you have about 3 groups of Liberians who entered the United States at various times who had TPS. TPS ended September 30th of 2007. And at that time, anyone who had TPS who registered for DED went on to DED. DED is Deferred Enforced Departure, which basically means that during the period for which it was effective, the US government would not enforce or deport Liberians who were registered for DED. So that is the program that was recently extended for 1 year only and then will be ending at the end of March of 2019.
All right, let's say on that, Patricia, there has been little, I don't want to say misunderstanding concerning the DED be extended, or you have last time. So there was some misunderstanding when it comes to the language. Tell us exactly what the president said concerning DED.
Well, DED has been extended one last time for 1 year. It would be the simplest way to put it.
Okay. Right. Mr. Abdullah Kiatamba, I know, and one reason we are having this discussion is, first let me start with a story. There was this the story that I read in grade school of monkeys. Anytime there is rain, then they are saying, tomorrow we're going to build our house. Tomorrow we'll build our house. When the rain stops and the sun comes up, the monkeys start to jump from tree to tree and they forget about building house. So this time around, we have DED has been extended. First, tell me, what has been your effort from the EULA perspective and also the African Immigrant Service? What has been your effort in getting, rallying support for DED to be extended this time around? Because I know March 31st was the deadline.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to the show. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Thank you for inviting me to the show. I'm very happy to be here with you. And Patricia, nice to meet you. Well, first of all, we'd like to thank everybody who's worked on this, from lawmakers. We began this campaign about a year ago in different ways. We part of a coalition, my organization, the African Immigrant Services, work on immigration issues. We work on policy issues. We work on community organizing, work civic engagement, leadership development. So part of our work is engaging community policy change and system change, and organizing and mobilizing community around issues that are very critical, um, that address racial disparities, and also make sure all the system work for us as immigrants. So we've done this campaign, different kind of campaign around immigration for the last 80 years. So we think when it came close, after TPS had ended, Ebola TPS had ended, we're concerned that similar fate may apply to DED. So we began to engage some of our partners, and that at that point, the DACA issue came up. So we have already laid the groundwork by engaging lawmakers in Minnesota, doing a complete power mapping of our allies, challenges, and identify who's going to align with us in this fight if it comes to that. We also saw that after the election of Donald Trump, that the political climate had changed dramatically. This is now anti-immigrant hostile environment that were emerging. There was a right-wing shift towards a more nativist approach to immigration. They saw immigration now as a problem. The narrative, the dominant narrative was not to highlight the contributions of immigrants, but to see them as those who were taken away from those who are native born Americans. So there's a lot more work than we felt that would have happened. And so the anti-immigrant bias, anti-immigrant xenophobia was on increase. So we also know it could be shaped and reflected in all these policy actions, the immigration reform, DACA, and all of that. So we began to do that. Then at the national level, EULA asked us to serve as the national co-chair of EULA around the strategy around how to handle first DED to prevent the worst case scenario. And I think that, so we begin to work both at the national and at the local level. They will also work with the organization of Liberians in Minnesota that created a collaboration with different organizations, including my organization, to see how we can move the ball. Now, and when DACA collapsed, when a lot of the DACA bill collapsed, because in some of those DACA bills, there were elements that covered DED actually, and there were elements that also covered TPS. And so we realized that if the DACA bill had completely collapsed, we had to choose a path where we intensify the campaign on DED in ways that we did not do, because we felt that independently of the DACA bill, it would have been difficult to garner that kind of political support. But we're also working on that on that pathway, making sure we're pushing DED, but making sure that there was some intersectionality between DED and the DACA bill. Ultimately, when the DACA bill collapsed, we begin to intensify. We begin to look at Minnesota, for example. We have about 8 congressional House of Representatives and 2 senators. We begin to engage them individually and make a case, create a narrative, and make sure we tell people who are actually on DED to tell their stories. Stories of they're contributing. Their kids are doctors, they're workers, they're co-workers, they're your neighbors. They contribute to this huge, not only here, but also in Liberia, and that the country, while it is going through a recovery process, is not ready to absorb a mass influx of people on DED from America, because these folks are actually creating the whole economy in Liberia where they're taking care of businesses. So I think that was the level. And I would think Minnesota has done a wonderful job. The state is there with all the groups. Then we descended upon DC, and we had a whole lobbying week where we make sure that we engage in every senator, every representative. We had a list of representatives. We train people how to engage in lobbying, how to do an ask, and how to present your narrative. And each group had a DED person that was making a powerful case. And I think we wanted them to sign what we call a Dear Colleague letter to the President of the United States. That was important to us. So when the signature began to grow, our confidence was increasing. We also realized that we have faith leaders, because South Sudan, they should have canceled their temporary status, but because of the evangelical leaders that got together and said, Mr. President, you cannot do this. So we had about 200 faith leaders across the country sending communication. We had a powerful media narrative around why these people are important. We have stories of DED people that were contributing. there were business people, they were just amazing story, powerful story, inspiring story that was completely powerful enough to counter any narrative around immigrant experience in the wrong way. So I think after that, hopefully, and we also engaged a Republican. It was difficult to get a Republican. We managed to get a Republican from Minnesota, Eric Paulson, to not only sign on to the Dear Colleague letter, but to also be a co-sponsor of the Liberian Fairness Immigration Act that would have provides a permanent resident status and create a more sustainable pathway towards citizenship. So I think this is just a round of what we've done. Personally, I've been working on immigration issues since 2004. So I've wrote all aspects of immigration policy issues. Basically, just a summary. So
great, and we're gonna get into more details. I want us, on this whole DED issue. Do we have an idea as to how many Liberians that are currently on DED? Patricia, do you have any numbers or?
No, I don't have any numbers because the switch from the TPS that was in effect and ended on September 30th of 2007, during that switch, unless a person actually registered from TPS to DED, they are not covered by DED. So the numbers are more than likely less than the numbers who were registered for TPS that ended in September 30th of 2007, because I know that not everyone continued with the registration. Right. In addition, some people who had TPS back in 2007 have now pursued other immigration options, and have different status, either because they've been here so long that their children born here are over 21 and can petition for them to get a green card, or they've gotten married, et cetera. So I'm not sure what the numbers are as far as who is still on DED.
Right, and because I understand that by the time they started, I think the number was around 4,000. But as you said, we're not sure if all the 4,000 persons were able to move from TPS to DED, and probably the numbers may be higher. Abdullah, you have any ideas on the numbers?
Well, we treat it as a range. So we look at between 3,000 to 6,000. So we treat it as a range because there were Freedom of Information Act requests to give a more tangible, more credible number, and we could not get that response back. So this request has been done 3 or different 4 times. But we're looking at a range. We do know that there was that number of people, like Patricia said, I totally agree with Patricia. So we deal with it as a range. So between 3,000 to 6,000. So, and the second thing is, it's important to treat it as a range because we do not want to make some of these people invincible by minimizing or reducing the number at the expense of the cost. Because if we minimize the number, I prefer to earn by increasing it, by looking at the higher end of the number than the lower end of the number. Because this is a serious issue. These are people's lives. I do not want to reduce anyone to 0 when they actually worth more than millions. So I would love to look at the range between 3,000 to 6,000. And I'll just get to that. And
in addition to what Abdullah said, the fact is, even someone who did not register for DED after TPS ended in 2007, or who registered maybe for that first 18 months and then did not register again, if they're still in the United States, the ending of DED has implications for them as well, because unless they have status, they need immigration options at this time. Usually what happens is that when a country has DED or TPS, if there are persons who have not committed any criminal crimes or have no criminal convictions, ICE, in its discretion, might decide not to deport such a person. Say they didn't register for TPS or DED 1 year, and so they're out of status now. However, once DED ends, the basis on which ICE may have exercised discretion by not deporting them would end. Because the reason ICE would exercise such discretion would be because the country has DED. But once DED ends, every Liberian who is without status in the United States is fair game for deportation. And those persons who may already have an outstanding order from an old case prior to, say, DED coming into effect, they would also be fair game, because the Trump administration's priority for deporting persons includes anyone who is here, regardless of relationship to a U.S. citizen. Anyone who is here without immigration status can be deported.
And that leads me to my next question. I don't know, Patricia or Abdullah, any of you can take that up. Is what is the significance of DED? One, to Liberia as a country, to the United States. Why, for instance, for Liberia, why is having Liberians being on DED here or not being on? Why is it important to Liberia, and how is it important to even America?
Well, if I can go first, and then maybe Abdullah can add his perspective. From an economic point of view and an infrastructural point of view, DED is and was important to Liberia as it rebuilt after the Civil War. Now, the amount of remittances sent through Western Union, MoneyGram, etc., is quite high. It's in the millions. So it makes up a certain percentage of the Liberian economy. With the ending of DED, the ending of the ability for Liberians here to work legally with a work permit, and actually the ability to remain here, once that ends, that source of funding into the Liberian economy also ends. So that, the economy of Liberia helps keep it stable, especially because it is still recovering from the Civil War, even though, we're now into a second presidency in the Republic after the Civil War. But it is important. From the American perspective, providing safe harbor to the nationals of a country that the U.S. was instrumental in of its formation, its creation, and a country that has historically had close ties with the United States, by virtue of the fact that it was freed American slaves who traveled to the land that would eventually become Liberia. And for the first so many years of the country's existence, the U.S. Was very much involved in its governance. So providing a safe haven for its nationals during times of instability, and providing a means by which the country, as it rebuilt after a protracted civil war, that the country could receive economic assistance from its citizens abroad, and just have time to rebuild before it absorbs the thousands of Liberians who sought refuge here in the United States. That is, well, it used to be at least an important foreign policy goal. And America being a leader, or just juxtapositioning itself as a leader in the international order, would want to set an example that it can provide refuge for persons who find themselves, displaced from their homeland in times of war. So it is important for America, foreign policy wise. In addition, Liberia has resources that I'm sure the United States is interested in benefiting from. So it never hurts to have a good relationship with, another country.
Thank you. Abdullah, anything to add to that?
Well, I think Patricia captures the most essential aspect of this question. But ultimately, is that I think the DED is part of the present flexibility in his power on foreign relations, conducting foreign relations. And he makes that determination looking at the conditions on the ground, looking at sometimes recommendation from the State Department, but ultimately the president make a determination. It is in the foreign policy interest of the country to extend or provide that kind of temporary legal reprieve for folks from a particular country. So I think that is important. On the other hand, I think those on DED are creating a more vibrant and inclusive and prosperous community everywhere they are. They are business people. Their kids are contributing. They are helping. They are contributing financially. Some of them are actually teaching students. Their kids are American sailors, Marines, soldiers, pilots, doctors, the engineers. Some of the kids are doing wonderful in sports. Some of the kids are just good kids. And they're Americans now. They're part of that fabric of the American society. They are building this vibrant and prosperous community. And so I think it is mutually beneficial when you have immigrants that are productive, that are adding to the tax base, increasing your tax base, and are also creating these vibrant communities. It's always in the interest of those communities to make sure they embrace them, they welcome them. And I think that any problem or any negative impact on those on DED would have affected huge number of people beyond our communities, just beyond our communities. Not only that, folks on DED are creating their own economies in Liberia. The businesses would now have opened only a family that the brothers or sisters on DED in America, and they're sending that money to open a business. The orphanages, churches, mosques, business people, even the health sectors. People cannot go to the hospital. They're waiting for money grant in Western Union. Those remittances, thousands, millions of dollars that are being infused into the economy. Now, they're infused into an economy in which, without the money, the government cannot step to solve that problem. Because if the government could have solved that problem would not have existed anyway. So I think that there's a major contribution across the Atlantic, and even in the US. Now, the president recognizes that. Everybody recognizes that. The only thing is finding that balance between recognizing the contribution of these people and the applications of their laws to the land. And I think that's where we are.
Okay, so and I keep struggling with this in my head as to and you hit on, both of you touch on the economy. So the government of Liberia has an incentive to make sure that DED is sustained, or these people are moved to permanent status.
Now, yes. Were you looking for a response to that?
Right. The incentive.
Okay.
Should government push should the government of Liberia push for all citizens to be brought back to Liberia to contribute, or they have an incentive to say, let them stay there, or let the DED continue, or let them move to permanent status so they can keep infusing into the economy? What would be the incentive for the Liberian government to do either or?
Well, I think you would need a representative from the Liberian government to speak directly to that, but I can surmise that for a country that may not want to have to absorb thousands of citizens at one time, have to provide for housing, different government services, etc., jobs, they may want to have a more orderly transition. And like I pointed out earlier, with the economic benefit from the remittances, the Liberian government would have motivation to see that continue.
All right. So Abdullah, let me come to you. I know you have interacted with many of these Liberians that are on DED. The question has been asked continuously as to, and some go to the extent that, why would someone be on DED for 20 or 30 years? I saw some Facebook posting that very, I can say that was very mean to people on DED. I said, hey, if you've been on DED for all that long, there's something wrong with you. What are the stories that you are hearing concerning why these people are still on DED?
Well, I think that people have to hear firsthand the stories of those people on DED. They're some of the most successful, productive, inspiring people you've ever met. And I don't think anybody do not want to upgrade or create a pathway to, but DED does not provide a pathway to permanent residency or to citizenship except through marriage or other means. But by itself, it does not have a means to do that. It's not like I got a green card and after 5 years, I can apply for citizenship. DED does not provide that kind of opportunity. So I think that because some folks have managed to transition, remember that. I know a DED lady who just managed to transition to a permanent residence because she had a chance, she had an opportunity. No one's gonna break up their families to go maybe get married or do something just to get a status. I don't think that is how people just don't want to get upset. I think people need to understand the nuances and the complications of these issues. Rather, it's not as simple as, okay, you got DED, you want to be permanent resident, and everybody else want to be permanent resident except you. No one chooses to do that. So I think let's be clear about there's no pathway from DED directly to a permanent resident status. It does not provide, it's just a temporary reprieve, extended over and over and over and over. The challenge has been, I think, it is a collective responsibility that we should lobby more effectively for Congress to pass. Jack Reed has been doing this thing for the last 20 years, putting a bill on the floor just for Liberians to get permanent resident status. He has not had enough co-sponsors. So we need to make sure that we increase our ability to be effective lobbyists, organizers, and advocates, increase the number of signatures, at least to get a hearing in Congress. And so ultimately provide that means. But we don't have that kind of political leverage and political clout and political power, Liberian community. A Jewish group would have had a lot of folks signing onto a bill for Israel. An NRA would have had a lot of people signing up for a different bill. A Labour group would have done that. Liberian community has not built that kind of political clout and power to flex its muscle in that way. So these people are not responsible for the fact that we do not have political clout because they themselves are on temporary legal status, not enough to be effective going to the Congress people. Because so I think we need to understand the entire context of this legal reprieve and get a sense of it. And two, look at the reality that no one will deny themselves permanent resident status, and they're on a threat of deportation every day. They're about to be separated from their families. They're about to lose their job. They're about to go to a broken healthcare system, and they do not want to choose to live to improve their life. No one chooses to do that. So I think people have to understand that really.
Right. Patricia, you probably handle some of these cases that come to you. What are you hearing from people on DED that are trying to regularize their status?
Well, we have several categories. There are people who do not have the requisite relationship to a U.S. citizen that would give them a green card immediately. There are those who are related to say, for example, they have a brother or sister, and that takes 12 years. And if you have fallen out of status, like most have, that means you've remained in the United States after your visa expired, but before you were granted TPS or DED, you are unable to remain here and get that green card. You have to leave and pick it up in Monrovia. Now, the US law says if you have remained here out of status for more than 6 months, but less than a year, when you leave, you have to stay out for 3 years. If you've been here more than a year out of status before you got DED or TPS, you then have to remain out for 10 years. You can apply for a waiver of that 10 or 3-year ban, but you need to be either the child or spouse of a US citizen. So for someone who has a brother or sister, they don't qualify for a waiver. They're going to have to wait for 12 years to get that green card. And then they're going to have to leave to pick it up from Monrovia and then have to wait out for another 10 years. So it's like a 22-year process. So that's one group. There's another group of persons who applied, say, for asylum before TPS was granted to Liberians. And for some reason or the other, they didn't show up for their asylum interview, maybe because they didn't get the notice. And now when you don't show up, you're referred to the immigration judge, which means you're placed in removal proceedings. And if you don't show up there, you're ordered deported in your absence. So there are those who have a deportation order. There are those who actually went to court, lost their asylum cases, and have a deportation order. For those persons, they have to go back and convince the court to reopen their cases years after. Usually, depending on the circumstances, you can reopen your case, but it's not years after. It's certainly not the length of time that persons have been here. The options in those cases depends on an individualized analysis of what, possible technical reasons there could be. If they didn't receive notice, they can reopen at any time. If they lost an asylum case, then it gets a little more difficult because you have to have a reason, like, what has changed now to justify reopening of the case. So you have those persons. And then you have people who just have no requisite relationship to be able to get a green card because according to US law, you get a green card either through your employer, through family sponsorship, or you can get it through, humanitarian programs like, applying for asylum. And for those who might be able to get an employer to sponsor them, you can't get the green card if you're out of status or you have been out of status for any amount of time before you say got TPS. So for those who might take advantage of an employment sponsorship, that takes it out of reach. Then if you don't have a US citizen child, or you don't have a US citizen spouse, which are the two quickest ways to get a green card, or your US citizen child isn't yet 21, because that's a requirement. The child has to be 21 to petition for you. So then you're stuck without any options right now. And getting married just to get a green card is a violation of immigration or the US immigration laws. And if you are found to have gotten married simply to get a green card, you are barred from ever getting a green card through any means. So it's really not the best route for people to go. And I'm sure most people are not trying to do that, which is why they're now, without options. But for some, there's nothing they can do. They didn't make the immigration laws and they don't qualify under the immigration laws as they stand now. And so that's just where it is.
Well, staying with you there. So now that the DED has been extended for another 12 months, or it's not going to be extended after the next 12 months, what are the options available for Liberians on DED? I know, and Abdullah touched on the Liberian Refugee Immigration Fairness Act of 2018. What are the options available for Liberians on DED?
For Liberians on DED, a bill being introduced is not a bill that is law. The legislative process is bill introduction. You have enough people signing on to even get the bill to the full consideration of either a committee who then refers the bill to the full body, either the House or the Senate. You need support in both houses in order for that bill to become law. And then you need the president to sign it and not veto it. So the introduction of a bill does not, especially given this Congress that can't seem to get legislation through or get enough cooperation from between the Republicans, the Democrats, and the White House. So the introduction of a bill does not necessarily mean relief for anyone who's on DED. Persons on DED need to seek legal counsel wherever they are to evaluate what their options are, because each person will have individualized options. Immigration law is very fact specific. So you can't say, well, my brother is able to do this, and so I'm going to be able to do that. Sometimes the difference with options is simply a matter of when a petition was filed on behalf of someone. So say the persons who can pay $1,000 penalty and don't have to leave, even though they may have fallen out of status before they got TPS, those persons had to have had the petitions filed for them prior to April 30th of 2001. So if you had someone who has a petition that was filed May 1st, that person is in a completely different situation than the person who had a petition filed on April 30th. So, people will need to spend the money, spend the time, go to their local immigration attorneys, make sure they're reputable, make sure they know the law, and they can advise them and give them some options. And for some, there may be no options. And this year allows people to get their affairs in order and decide where they want to go. Everyone does not necessarily need to go back to Liberia. There are other countries that, if you're a professional like Canada, they want immigration, they want diversity, and the more educated you are, the faster you will qualify to get a green card there. There are countries throughout the world. I do understand a lot of Liberians have ties here, but if someone does not have any options, they need to start thinking seriously about, what their next move will be. If a law comes through and is passed, that's even better. Then it's bonus for them. You know, they can always change plans before they leave the US and stay and take advantage of the law. But people do need to use the next 12 months to come, you know, if they have a consultation, you know, sometimes if the doctor gives you bad news, you seek another opinion. So if one lawyer gives you bad news, seek another opinion and see whether someone else can see a possibility that the next person cannot. And if, you know, you're getting the same information from a couple of people, then maybe you need to start making alternative plans, you know, that take you out of the US, because I do not recommend living in a situation where you could be picked up any day. That's just no way to live.
No. Well, that's interesting, especially the piece about going to try other countries that may be able to absorb you. So, Abdullah, I know you work with a lot of Liberian immigrants, especially those on DED as we are speaking now. So those options that are some of those options that Patricia talked about, if people come to your office at your African Immigrant Services, what help are you able to provide, or where are you able to direct them as to where they can get the kind of information that Patricia just talked about? We still on the options available for people on DED.
I like to pivot and focus on the legislation right now. I think it's more important. If we did not organize and lobby and advocate, we would not even have a DED extended for people to even look for services. So I want to spend a lot of time focusing on that. I think each community, Atlanta, for example, find out whether you're in a particular congressional district and engage your congressperson. We need, like she said, if we do not have enough co-sponsors, the bill will not even leave from the committee before it even gets a hearing. I think it is important. I want to really focus on our people are looking for solutions. And the solutions they want right now is how we increase congressional co-sponsors, how each community organized. Take, for example, in Minnesota, we got 80% or 90% of our congressional folks to sign up. If Atlanta can do that, if Georgia can do that, if Tennessee can do that, if Philadelphia can do that, we would have had a complete hearing on this immigration bill, and we would have gone too far. I think that is more important than solving the effect of the problem. I want to discuss the root of the problem. One, the case the president made about the president's decision was in part grounded in the fact that Liberia is recovering and is ready to absorb this number of people. The next 1 year, I want to make a case that while we recognize that Liberia is not quite there.
I didn't own you. Oh, thank you.
Liberia is not quite there to absorb the influx of people into the country, because the health system is still being rebuilt. The economy is still needs some strengthening, and we think it will be a humanitarian crisis if they were to go back. The second aspect is how do we create a bigger, more robust, effective campaign across the Liberian communities in America to make sure we have enough signatures that their congressional leaders, senators and lawmakers, they'll be able to engage them. Where do you start? How do you create an effective public narrative for the media in your local community to increase this campaign? We got 1 more year. We got 6 more months to actually run an effective campaign. No service, no amount of service will be able to help people if this status is completely terminated at the end of 2019. We will not be discussing service. So I want to focus a lot of time on a long-term solution than a short-term solution. There are a lot of options around what people can do, and I think people should be able to explore those options. But as an advocate and an organizer and a nonprofit leader, I'm more focused on long-term solutions. Now, if you come to my office and ask about questions about, we have a huge amount of legal resources. We have about 25 different lawyers, and we can determine what is the lawyer problem and identify which lawyer matches your need. But what we are interested in is to mobilize and organize a lot more people to focus on the long-term solutions that will not allow us to be going to lawyer every second. So that's why I'm much more interested in discussing the campaign on creating a pathway for our people than the service, because we can also discuss that. Yeah.
Let's discuss that. So on the EULA level, because we have EULA chapters in all these states, and so that would be a very good place to start, so that each EULA chapter will be able to, as you said, talk to their congressperson to be able to do. What is the effort on the part of you guys so as to garner all that support so that we can, in each state, start the mobilization and the advocacy effort?
So ULA is calling very shortly all the different chapter leaders into discussions around a next step. And that next step includes a national immigration conference. That next step includes building a huge amount of resources to fight the next stage of the campaign. Congressional folks, senators and House of Representatives folks are telling us, you guys need to start now. And here's our contribution. Here's what we want to do. But we need your help. We need you to reach out. If Dennis Jai is in Atlanta, that congressional person in Atlanta is going to listen to him more than he's going to listen to him because he's a voter in that area. So our goal is to make sure, how do we create a sense of urgency in all of these communities? And we're going to have a strategic session in April. And after April, before April, we're going to be engaging all these communities to come up with some grassroots solutions, a bottom-up solutions around what is the best way to move your lawmakers and U.S. congressional delegations towards this bill. Do they need to understand? Do you need some engagement with it? Here are some strategies. Here's the model we use in Minnesota. Here's the model that was used in Rhode Island. Those are the kind of things we're going to be working on. But I think it's also good for folks to see that this is an emerging grassroots movement, that in your community, volunteer to say, you know what, I want to be part of a task force on immigration across the country. And we will reach out to you. And you can call me at 612-388-4767. If you are interested in Atlanta to work on immigration, call me. And we will create a database of those who are interested in stepping up and volunteers, knocking doors, reaching out to lawmakers, phone banking, and make sure we increase the number of signatures on this. Look, this is serious. This is serious stuff.
Hold your thought. I want to go to Patricia quickly before we take leave of her. There are questions on the floor from our Facebook. How can Liberians with legal status be of help to those that are at risk of deportation, to those on DED? And Patricia, you can answer that question and use that time too to give us your final thought before we take leave of you.
Yes, I think Liberians with status, if you're related to a Liberian without status, you could find out what, maybe the two of you could visit an attorney, see whether you're able to petition for them, how long it would take, etc. The other thing that Liberians can do who have status, because if you have status, meaning if you're a U.S. citizen, you can vote. And that matters. When you contact your Congress or congressman, you want to be indicating, I am in your district, I'm a U.S. citizen, and I'd like you to support XYZ bill that's on the floor in such and such a house right now. That is important. So you can use the personal connections or personal relationships to help someone. If you own a business, you can sponsor some petition for someone if they would otherwise qualify. But that's, like I said, it's an individualized determination. You can also advocate by calling your congressman. And my final thoughts on this is that Liberians who are on DED have 12 months. While you should advocate and pursue the legislative fix, because no legislative process is fail-proof, you also want to have a plan B. Right. And this is where finding out your legal options, exploring other countries, maybe planning on returning to Liberia, those are all things people need to be considering. You need to have a plan A and a plan B and pursue both. Because what you do not want is to pursue one plan and in the end, it falls through at the last minute and you're not prepared and you have a deadline coming up on you. So those would be my parting thoughts.
Thank you so much. And we want to thank you, Patricia, for joining this discussion. We have this on Facebook, so if you have time at your leisure, you can go and respond to some of these questions. I'll be sharing the link with you.
Okay, sure.
Because of your prior engagement, we want to say thank you so much for joining. And we'll be glad to have you back as soon as you can.
Okay, it's been a pleasure and great meeting you, Abdullah, as well. Have a good evening, everyone.
I learned a lot from you, so I learned a lot.
Okay. All right then. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Patricia.
Okay.
All right. Abdullah, so it's just you now, so you got to answer all my questions. All right, let's come to, I know you are more focused on the pathway to citizenship, but we want to look at the best and the worst case scenario. Best case scenario, that is approved and our people can apply for citizenship, or they can have other means to regularize their status. Worst case scenario, they can be deported, or they can self-deport, or they have no way to get work permit, and so they are not able to work. So how do we prepare for the worst case scenario?
Well, I think the worst case scenario, like Patricia said, is to look at the legal options. What are some of the legal options? What are the legal options I have? And everybody's circumstances are different. And so I think it's helpful to engage a lawyer to get a sense of what are my options. That's one. The second option, part of that is to see beyond the legal options. What if the legal options fail me? What are some options? Can I move to a different place, a different country that I can be useful to avoid being deported? Because when you're deported, it takes longer time to come back than when you leave, actually. So I think that those are considerations. And then the third option, which is the first option, is to get involved. Is to tell your family to get involved in this campaign. We can win this campaign. We can win this if everybody come on. But this is a winnable campaign. I believe we will win. But we have to behave like winners. We have to step up. We have to invest time. We have to invest resources. We have to invest our voices. We have to invest everything we have to make sure we win this campaign. This is a winnable campaign. I think it is easier won than I actually thought. So I'm telling everybody, let us make this work. This is our chance to right a wrong that we could not right for almost since 1991. We cannot live under the cloud of unpredictability and uncertainty. Our people cannot pin their hope on the political win of the country. When right now there's an anti-immigrant hostile climate, we cannot run stuff like this. We need to make sure we push for more permanent resident status for our people and create a pathway for citizenship. This is doable. This is winnable. This can be done. And we can do it. We have the answers to this problem. No one else outside ourselves can solve this problem. We can engage. We've seen this in Minnesota. It happened. We've seen this in different states. When people step up, problems melt away. When people step back, the problems get bigger. The problems are getting bigger because the leaders are getting smaller. We need to get bigger on these problems, and we'll reduce these problems to nothing. I'm absolutely certain if every Liberian community across the U.S., you just need 5 or 10 states to have just half of the lawmakers to be co-sponsors to these bills. We will go far. We got a DFL. We got half of the Congress that is DFL. It's pro-immigrant. Let's assume that way. You just need a good number of people. And this is the kind of bill that is not offending anybody because we did not come here illegally. That's a different thing. Most of those on DED came here illegally. Most of our immigrant issues that people are discussing, they came here illegally. Liberians are among the few immigrant groups that actually came into this country legally. So
that's a good point. And I also read that the Liberians on DED are well vetted, and
yes,
that's good news. I have few suggestions for you from Facebook.
Okay.
From Panendo, he said a letter writing campaign can form part of a broader strategy. Then I got it from A. Kolobozumo Zakama Jr. It is solution time. We need to establish a strategic immigration committee to focus on a two-pronged approach to galvanize all Liberians, encourage congressional leaders to sign on to the pending bill, and create a pool of lawyers to provide legal assistance. What is Zakama saying?
Well, I can tell you this is a brilliant suggestion. This is exceptionally brilliant. I mean, you have a legal resource, build a more powerful legal resource that can address legal issue on a one-on-one basis. We got a hotline, people call in, or people invested. There's a Liberian community legal resource, that's one. And one angle, you'll be pushing the passage of these bills that address these issues will be a powerful thing. But I can promise you, if each community, and guess what, it takes just a phone call. If a senator in Atlanta or in Georgia receives 300 phone calls on one issue, automatically it gets prioritized in the office. If 500 voters in that state or just 200 voters show up to that office and say, this is an issue. This is a midterm elections here, remember. This is midterm election here. Remember that. Show up. Call your congressional folks. Even if it means finding the vulnerable congressional folks, find them and go to them and say, look, I got votes, but I need something. I'm telling you, this is doable. And so what we are doing in the next several months and days and weeks is to, I'll be taking a 10-state tour to share some strategies and perspective and provide some technical support.
That's what I'm coming to about leadership, because like Zakama said, I say we need to form this. Who takes this leadership role so to make sure that all these brilliant suggestions, are implemented?
So one of the things we're doing right now is working with ULA. So my organizations would have done was actually on Ebola TPS. My organization worked separately with working with ULA to approve of Ebola TPS. But now we're trying to find a bigger coalition. ULA, Undocumented Black Badgie, a lot of different groups, non-Liberian-led organizations that are coming to a bigger coalition. So we're coming to revisit the nature of the relationship and what are some clear goals, because we've only got 6 months. We have only 6 months to gather a certain number of signatures. If we do not do that, and after midterm elections in November, and the political winds swing in a different direction, we would have just forgotten about the whole thing. So I think it's important. The question is ULA. ULA should be coordinating all of this. And as a national co-chairman, we just had a teleconference with our strategic leadership team around bringing all the different leadership and creating a bigger immigration task force that is beyond a committee, that is beyond an organization, that addresses for a long term. And then connect to all other groups. There's some powerful groups that work on a lot of immigration reform that when originally are not connected to ULA. My organization just connected to work of ULA on this DED. First, we're working on our separate path. But I think we're all coming together now and make sure we move the ball. So we're building a bigger task force of every representative for every state. We're designing a roadmap, a template, how to start a campaign. A lot of communities don't know where to start from, how to engage the media, how to engage Congress. We've done that many times, 50 times, 30 times, many times. We share that wisdom with folks and say, look, it's easy. You might think it's as complicated as possible, but it is as simple as you might think. And so that's what we're going to be in the next several days. And we can tell our people, we will win this stuff. We'll win this campaign. But to win, we can't hope for victory. We need to work for victory.
All right. Let's turn to the government of Liberia. What level of support have you gotten from the government of Liberia to make sure that people on DED, because of worst case scenario, Liberians who have been out of status as of yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
What's the level of involvement from our government, if any?
So I like how you said Liberians would have been out of status yesterday. Their driver license would have been revoked. Minnesota people received tons of letters. If you do not update your information by Monday, we will revoke your driver license and you cannot drive. A lady was called to a job, she could not come back to job. Her medical insurance would have ended. A huge loss of income for our community. So the worst case scenario was prevented yesterday by the grace of God. So what we did, when we went DC for 1 week, we actually went to the embassy. Before that, we, from the ULA level, engaged some of the folks around the president and told them, their team, look, this president is not only the president for Liberians in Liberia, he's the president for Liberians in China, for every Liberian in Japan, for every Liberian in America. He is our president no matter where we are. That is why the U.S. government, when there's a problem with a U.S. citizen in China, they take it serious. So you should represent the welfare of Liberians everywhere. We expected something more. They did not step us as we expected. They did not step us as much as we wanted. But they gave us support, they gave us assurances, but we expected something more. We expected a press conference from the president, a letter to the State Department. We engage them as much as we can. We actually engage the embassy as well. In fact, the embassy were telling us that the people should be getting ready to go and that they're not too sure they're going to approve of DED at all. That's the message we got from the very embassy, the Liberian embassy in DC. So we think that this is very important that this time around we get support from every part of our institutions from our country, whether it's an ambassador, whether it's the president, whether it's an accomplished Liberian, a successful Liberian, a famous Liberian. We need every support we need for our people. This is the last battle. This is going to be the last. This is our chance to show we care for our brothers as much as we care for ourselves. This is our chance to prove that we're so educated, we know how the American systems work. This is our chance to display and unleash that gift, that talent, that work, that strength on the problem that has created clouds over our heads for so many years and over our lives. This is our chance. We asking everybody, pray, but work. And so this is our chance. Back to the question, we hope the government will step up and do more. We saw a press conference by Sam Manning about the after it was approved, thanking the U.S. government and asking Liberians to behave well in the U.S., obviously. But we expected something more. But we appreciate the fact that they even cared to call us to assure us that, look, we're working on something that was good for us, but we would have expected something more.
Okay, we always want more, right? Now, if Liberians are, in a worst case scenario, deported back to Liberia, you will have people with chronic diseases, people that are on dialysis, people that are, kind of supposed to be in the hospital. So all these people will be going to Liberia where the healthcare is not so great. How, so will that kind of not frighten the country, or how prepared is like, I know you are not speaking for the government of Liberia, but from your, from the information you got, how prepared is the country to receive this kind of people, especially those with chronic diseases who need to be close to the doctor?
Well, I think that we know based on, that is not my assessment, State Department, UNDP, a lot of different international agencies. Liberia does not have the capacity to absorb the influx of people from the US. Yes, this is a country of more than 80% unemployment. Let's be honest. The health system is complete disaster. There's not an opportunity that exists in ways that will allow people to rebuild their lives and or to even live a life of stability. I mean, this would be dangerous. But beyond that, they'll be leaving their kids in. The kids will be exposed to drugs, to crime, will be put in foster care. And there'll also be a loss of income from Liberia, because why? These people are contributing. Some of these people are building homes and people are running businesses in Liberia because someone on DED is sending money. People are, orphanages are being sustained by some of these people. Tons of people are given opportunity. People are going to schools and colleges and high school because their families are sending remittances to Liberia. So there's going to be a humanitarian crisis now. Does the government have the capacity to create a system that allows these people to resettle? No. Even if the government have that capacity, it will create resentment. They say, well, we here, we can't eat, and you're just taking care of people who've been eating chicken and Kim Burger, you bring them here, you're taking care of them, And so I think this is something that the government needs to think about. The only good side of this is that there may be people who are skilled, who could be helpful to the country, but if you say you're on dialysis and there's no machine, you just go into a death trap. It's a death trap. And I think that's why we need to work as hard as possible. And besides, people should volunteer to go home, not to be driven to go home, not to be deported to go home. It's humiliating. So I think we have a chance. We have a chance to do something historic in 2018, 2019. I am committed to this. We just so many people committed. Someone just wrote on Facebook, women groups. In Minnesota, a lot of women groups step up. I can tell you that. We had a big rally at the state capitol. Women groups ran this stuff. They were doing the groundwork. They were organizing people. They were making food. They were raising money. They were fixing tea. They were making T-shirts. Women were leading this stuff. We were working on the policy aspect and organizing and mobilizing the media aspect, but the women were all over this thing. Even the women were all over all aspects of the work. So I think this is our chance. Look, this should be the biggest campaign in the history of the Liberian diaspora ever. For 20 years, we just go to a senator. No. I mean, this last hour, I can tell you, I've never seen the intensity of a campaign like I saw. I mean, we went to Eric Paulson, the Republican, the second time we went to his office, we said, look, we asked you to sign to the bill. You did. We asked you to sign on the Dear Colleague letter. You did. We want to ask one more ask, call the White House. He said, I will call the White House. That was a campaign. So if every community is doing the same thing, find a friendly congressional person in your state and reach out to them. They're waiting for you. They want to hear from you. They want you to tell them your stories. They want to feel touch. You know, so that's. I hope I give you a long answer to a short question, but
that's brilliant. And you raised a very important point about the children that will possibly be left behind if these people are deported to Liberia, and that should be like a talking point to the state, because you see, if take for instance in Georgia, if we have 1,000 parents who are taken and deported, they have children here, so that's going to put a stress on the budget of the state, because they have to take care of these kids in foster homes and have other programs so as to take care of them. Or if these people are out of status and they cannot work, they become a burden on the state. They become liability because they cannot work, and you still have to take care of them through safety net programs.
Yeah. So, and also that creates a burden on the scarce resources of the state. Not only that, these kids could be exposed to people with abusive, destructive, drugs, crimes. And this is going to create problems for the state, and our community will have a bad name because, oh, these are DED kids. I mean, this is a serious problem. This is not small joke. And if you have very qualified, very experienced, very exposed, very powerful and sophisticated, even ordinary people in these states, if you have the Dennis Dow of Atlanta, the Broplets, the Panedos, the Isaac Central, these people should step up and say, you know what, let's move this ball, let's make this thing change for our people. Step up in your state and say, we will lead our team. Just Google Minnesota congressional delegation, Georgia congressional delegation, the entire list will pull down, and call them, and call each person, and phone them. We will give you a strategy and the tools to phone them. It's easy stuff. We'll give you a tool to create a talking point that is easy. Everybody knows the talking point, and call them, and do a visitation. Organize a community and drive to the offices and say that we want to visit you. This is no longer a top-down approach where few folks from ULA go to the capital. It does not work. I'm an organizer. I train organizers. I train community organizers. And I train folks around how to organize to lead the policy change, how to make the system to respond to you, how to make the system to work for you. That's what I train people to do, to get them to organize. That's what I do. That's my life. And I thought it was challenging until I begin to do this work. And I see that here are huge possibilities. We invest in possibilities. We do not see this is not possible. There's so much possibility. If you call a senator, you build a relationship in your communities. Yeah. What is the relationship of the Liberian community in Georgia to their congressional delegation? When was the last time any member of Congress from Georgia ever attended a Liberian community? If that has not happened, build that relationship. In Minnesota, that kind of relationship exists. You need to replicate that across different communities. When we do that, remember, we went to Congress, and some of the folks in Congress do not know what is called DED. Be honest with you. Because this is not what they do on a daily basis. Right. So you need to educate them, but you cannot educate someone when you're not engaging them. We need to step up. We need to stand up. We need to raise our voice. We need to invest our time. We need to invest our resources and do this work for our people. This is possible. We can win this, but we have to behave like winners. We have to step up like winners. We have to work like winners.
There's a comment here on Facebook from Wilmot J. Collins. He said this solution to this issue is a presidential solution, not embassy nor splinter Liberian groups. He's putting this on the and I'm wondering if that's the Mayor Wilmot J. Collins or any other Collins. So he says it's presidential. In other words, the president of Liberia should, the president of Liberia or the president of the United States. Mr. Collins, you can please clarify. But he said that's a presidential solution, not an embassy, not splinter Liberian groups.
Well, I don't know how passing a bill in Congress is a presidential decision. No president ever interfere with the decision of the U.S. Congress. Two, I think it would have looked, the only thing, if the president could have made a case and say, oh, based on what I know in my country, I don't think we're ready to absorb these people. These are the kind of things you can do. But don't tell me it's a presidential. DED is a presidential decision by the president of the United States, not the president of Liberia. So I don't know what was the context. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah. Now, people who've been on, I spoke with one person who was on DED for the past 16 years and said, well, you know what? This is too much. I have to go back home. So you will have a number of people who say, well, DED or no extension, I'm going. I'm giving myself 6 months, or at the end of 10 months, I'll be going to Liberia. We may have people like that, or a number of people like that. What is your recommendation as to what the government of Liberia can do to make that transition possible? I'm looking at maybe, duty-free goods, or subsidizing the purchase of land, building, or whatever way possible. Do you have any recommendation?
Well, I think that even before this, I think the government of Liberia during early time provided incentives for those who want to return home and contribute, professionals who want to return home. So I think the government can create a program that incentivizes those who think that they are choosing to look, why I really will work towards this bill. Even if the bill passes, I just want to move to Liberia. I was on DED. I think the government can do that. And I think the government needs to bring some intentionality to that. They just cannot wait until that moment gets there. And I think that's very, very important. I think the government should be able to do that. But I think the government itself has not been, I don't know that the institutional knowledge on this issue to the extent where it will create a level of urgency that I will expect. I don't think there's a sense of urgency around how to handle a mass influx from folks in the diaspora. They probably need to set up a working group to give them some recommendations, how to handle this, what kind of program will be helpful, and look at some existing models across the world, how different communities who status were canceled or terminated, how did the government handle that situation? And I think those are the kind of recommendations I will do. But I think that is one thing, duty-free goods for coming back, an opportunity to maybe a tax abatement, not paying taxes for a year on business investment or on personal income at least for a year, and some level of support in different ways. And I think that can be determined by what is possible, the capacity and the resources the government has. But I think they need to set up a team, maybe commission or task force, to make a list of recommendations and looking at all the existing models across the world.
Thank you. If you're just joining us, you are watching Focus on Liberia. We come to you every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Tonight, we are speaking on the Deferred Enforced Departure, that's DED. It was extended for another 12 months, or he has entered a 12-month winding down period. Currently, there is a bill that is in Congress that is being sponsored by Mr. Jack Reed. That's the senator from Rhode Island. That's bill number 2275, the Liberian Refugee Immigration Fairness Act of 2018. That's the Liberian Refugee Immigration Fairness Act of 2018. Senator Jack Reed is Democrat is a senior senator from Rhode Island. And that's the bill that's right now on the table. So we are discussing all that. What can we do now within this 12 months period, wind down period? We don't want to be, as I stated earlier, like the monkeys when it was raining. I read this story in probably third grade. When it's raining, the monkeys all are crying. Say, tomorrow we're going to build a house. Tomorrow we will build a house. We'll build a house. The next day when the sun comes up, the monkeys forget totally about building this house, and they are jumping from tree to tree, enjoying themselves. Right now, the rain has ceased, and so deportation that was supposed to take place as of March 31st has been extended to March 31st, 2019. Are we going to build a house, or are we going to start jumping from tree to tree now? That's what we're discussing. And I have Mr. Abdullahi Kiatamba. He's the co-founder and executive director of Africa Immigrant Services. He's also the co-chair of the EULA Immigration Committee. And these people have been working tremendously to make sure that this the DED is extended, and they are pushing strongly through Congress so that we can have a pathway to citizenship. If the bill is passed, Liberians can be able to apply for citizenships or permanent or green card status. Right now, Abdullah is calling all Liberians across these United States to mobilize and talk to their Congress people on the state level and put together, use our vote. This is midterm elections is coming up, so you can use that time to bid and ask for something in exchange for our vote. Oh, Mr. Kiatamba, I still want to talk about Liberians in Liberia. There's a video that I watched on Facebook where they were kind of joking about it. They said the people from America, if they are deported, we will send them to Soniwen so they can feel the bite of mosquitoes. What are you hearing as to the feelings of Liberians on the ground concerning this pending deportation or possible deportation of Liberians from the United States?
Well, if I was a Liberian who were receiving $200 every month from my sister, and I was paying my school fee, and I was bluffing in town, and I was wearing some of the good clothes, and I was taking my friend out, and I managed to buy some copybooks, some textbooks that were quite expensive at LU or Zion or some different schools, I'll be seeing something different. I'll be seeing something. If I was a Liberian who was an orphan in an orphanage, and that orphanage was being sustained by investment from someone or somebody cares enough in America and send investment, I'll be seeing something different. For those, sometimes there's a resentment in our country around people from the diaspora taking over all the opportunities and stuff. That is sometimes happen. So we can understand that, but that is not the best way to address your own people. Because when there was war, there was no government functioning. These are the people that are sending remittances to the country and sustaining life and keeping things alive. So we have to appreciate that. We may not be direct beneficiary of what they were doing, but someone we know benefited, and that money stayed in our country. That money did not go to China, it did not go to Brazil, it came to Liberia. And because it came to Liberia, someone wanted to invest in business because there was money coming from the US. And that business, for some reason, someone you know or some way, somehow impacted you. So I don't think that's the best response, but ultimately, I think all of them, whether you're in Liberia, you're in China, use your Facebook to create hashtag and movements to support the passage of DED and to also pressure the government of Liberia, if you're in Liberia, instead of saying this, pressure the government of Liberia to say, what are you doing about brothers and sisters outside Liberia? I think that is the best role you can play to contribute to your brothers in the US. They committed no crime by coming here and seeking opportunity. You would have done the same thing if you had a chance. So everybody's just trying to seek opportunity to better their life. So I'll just leave it at that.
All right. There are some suggestions again on Facebook. Lobeto Tukbe is saying President William must also write President Trump to appeal for DED holders. Sending people whom will also impact the economy as his administration is struggling with limited resources.
Well, I think that's a brilliant suggestion. I think that even the fact that President Trump said the ending the program itself, I think he can change his position because his decision was based on an assessment that says the country is recovering, but that assessment is not realistic and does not reflect the reality on the ground. And so we need to make a more powerful assessment to him who said, look, this is the reality that they did not tell you, they did not brief you. This is the reality. And I think he needs to do that. Another one we can do is invite the president to visit Liberia and see for himself some of the challenges, some of the experiences. And that will be a complete game changer. You will see the Liberian issue differently. When people come to your home and sit with you and laugh with you and share a meal with you and look at your challenges and your struggles, they think about you differently. They no longer look at you through the lenses of some policy briefing document that they read about Liberia and got no emotional attachment or connection to the country. So I think her suggestion is in place. How we do that, I think that's the next step strategy we've been discussing about.
We have had a lot of Liberian organizations here in the diaspora. And I think even last year we had a show on Liberian diaspora organizations. Most of the time, our goal with all these, I think this DED issue presents an opportunity that we can look at our goals, our mission a little differently. You know, and as you have said, you want people to mobilize. So I think we can look at these organizations and see what they can do. It can even be an alumni association, a state association, a county association. What message do you have for them when it comes to the kind of mobilization that your organization is doing and that EULA is kind of spearheading?
Well, I think these organizations have to say, well, how can we contribute to this effort? Or they can ask themselves whether we'll be a bystander. We just look around and come on Facebook, or we can do nothing. And who can do something? And they can do something. So we're going to be reaching out to all these different groups, tribal groups, alumni groups, and say, if you have your branch in Atlanta or Tennessee, can you reach out to them to join a task force on immigration there, so they can reach out to as many people as possible? Because when we share the work, it does not burden one person, it does not overwhelm one person, it does not complicate the other person's life, it makes it easy. So we're going to be reaching out to them and say, or alumni can say, look, what is our commitment to this campaign from now to 2019? What is our commitment? How do we intend to commit? Do we intend to commit manpower? Do we intend to encourage folks who will volunteer? Do we intend to raise some resources and give it to EULA or any other organization and say, look, this stuff will require a lot of traveling to Washington, D.C., to different states to train their team and staff, to get involved, to get active and make calls and engage the lawmakers, and to also build a powerful case around the narrative of DED holders. What is their stories? So the stories touch people's hearts. And so what should we do? So that is the next step. Alumni should also volunteer. Whether we reach out to you and I'm volunteers and say, look, maybe I can do something. And maybe I should call a teleconference of my group and see what are the options, what are the best way to contribute to this work.
All right, thank you. I earlier invited someone on DED, and I'm trying to bring them into the conversation. I'm having some issue. And if you are on the phone to share your DED story, there is an option to raise your hand. If you raise your hand, I can invite you to talk. If you have that option available on your phone, please raise your hand, and I will invite you to talk. And folks, we are about to draw down the curtains as we discuss DED. Earlier, we had Councilor Patricia Minigun, who an immigration lawyer, spoke to us about all the different things and the options we have. And Facebook, we have a lot of comments and suggestions on Facebook. Stanley Thomas Sewon is saying, let us be realistic with ourselves as we engage the American Congress. Legalizing our fellow American status, our fellow Liberian status with a pathway to citizenship is politically charged and unrealistic at this time. We cannot even get the support of most of the Democrats in Congress. Why can't we focus on the battle that is winnable? Stanley Thomas Sewon does not think we can win the fight for a pathway to citizenship. I don't think you like that very well, Abdullah.
Well, first of all, I will remind him, David did not feel that he could be, nobody thought David would be Goliath. Martin Luther King would have taken his ball and go home and said the American government is the most powerful imperialist nation on the face of the earth, while we are a bunch of unarmed people singing and working for civil rights movement. It would have done. Countries that were colonized could have said the same thing. The British Empire was so powerful, we have the most powerful army, the Navy. We just need to give up. And people who want to make peace in Liberia would have said, this country this conflict is too deep, we just need to leave it. You do not solve problems by not confronting the problems. This is a challenging stuff, but everything has been challenging. Every successful movement have faced challenges and have to face down those challenges. We think we can win, and we will win. That's my response to him. We will win, and when we win, we'll call him to celebrate with us.
Right. Let me read the last comment from Facebook from Dave Jar. He said, he want to sound a point of caution. He's saying, by pushing this DED, let me read directly, why it is essential that we advocate for the cause of those on DED such should be done in a way that we do not create the impression that the situations in Liberia are so unbearable and chaotic to the extent that such may also scare away investors or those seeking to visit the country. David saying if we present the story that Liberia is so bad for these people to return, that may scare away investors and people who want to visit Liberia.
Well, first of all, I don't think nobody's scared with Liberia, but even when investors go to Liberia, they probably get a reality. People don't invest only in the country because everything is right. In fact, it is good for businesses to invest in the country first before it get right, so that other businesses will come in. So we're not doing that. We're basically saying Liberia is growing, but it does not have the capacity to absorb the influx of people, and that is a reality. Liberia is at a different place than other countries. So if investors see he got to make $10 million, and because he hears someone saying that, trust me, he's going to go make that money. In fact, during the heat of the war, investors were making money out of Liberia. It doesn't change anything. But we're just being honest about a more realistic assessment. We are not saying Liberia is a dead end, Liberia is completely unlived or is not livable. We're only saying it is not at the point where it can absorb a huge influx of people from the U.S.
Glenn Davis is, and I heard this also, that this advocacy now is good, but are we able to really sit down and do like a project proposal, like looking at actual data that we can present to be able to convince people, so that we can present our findings? For instance, if we're able to find how many people that have chronic diseases that are at risk of deportation, how many kids going to be left behind if Liberians are sent home? All these things, if we can find numbers and put numbers, so we do actual, like a think tank group that can actually crunch the numbers and present proposal backed by numbers to Congress and use that tool as advocacy, I think that would be helpful. Glenn Davis is kind of saying something like that.
Well, I think that's a brilliant idea. Those are the kind of ideas we need. I think we need to make a data-driven case that is grounded in facts. Data do not lie. Data are very important, a very powerful way, but we also need a lot of personal stories of those who are impacted, and that will be reinforced by the data. I think that's a great idea, and I'm just ready. I actually wrote it down. I totally believe that's one of the most brilliant ideas I've heard, and I'm happy that he said that, and I just want to thank him for saying that.
Thank you, and thank you so much, Abdullah. At this time, I want to just come back to you for your final comments so that we can close the broadcast for tonight. It's been exciting, so exciting talking with you, Abdullah.
Well, thank you so much, Focus on Liberia. It is amazing how you guys have grown to be a powerful platform to discuss defining policy issues that affect our country and all Liberians across the diaspora. You guys have done wonderful. You guys have refused to be partisan. You guys have become independent, objective, and powerful and resourceful. And as a result, you guys have been credible panelists and speakers. And this is amazing. And I watch you guys, and I'm quite impressed with the growth. And I just want to say at last that, look, I met a lady who's having a terminal illness. She got cancer and other problems. All medical insurance would expire on Saturday because her job told her she had her kids came to me to tell me thank you for the campaign, and one of them said they did a private insurance assessment. It was about $1,000 for her medical coverage because of terminal illness, and because of the Ebola thing, because of the DED approval, she can now go through that process, and she completely lost her job. She would have lost her job. The second person got 3 kids. She received a letter from Minnesota State that her driver's license will be revoked by Monday if she does not bring an updated legal document. She was so waiting for this result. When she saw my post on Tuesday on Facebook, she called me. If this is not true, I could go heart attack. Please don't joke with this stuff. And I told her this is true. I just spoke to a U.S. congressperson directly, not even the staff. And I spoke to the person. I confirmed it. And I confirmed an email that shows that, yeah, it is true, from another person, to another congressperson, to another congressperson. And she said, now that's an extension for me. I would have had my driver's license revoked. I would have lost my job. The apartment complex would have kicked me and my 3 kids out. But that bleeding has stopped. The worst case has been prevented. We can prevent the worst one in 2019. All of us, we can win this. There are a lot of bills that a lot of advocates and organizers never felt they could have won in Congress. They won it. We can win this. Some people are for so many. We can win this. If each community of Liberians step up, engage the lawmakers, you will be shocked. You get so many yeses, so many support. It will be so amazing, so overwhelming that this will be approved. So I'm asking every community to step up, volunteer. Ask yourself, what can I do? Go online, Google my state congressional delegation, and the list will come up. And begin to strategize on how can I engage in. One way to find out to use your zip code. Go to their website and say, what is my congressional district? Put your zip code, Google what is my congressional district? And Google will come up with something that allows you to put your zip code, and it will tell you exactly who is your congressional representative in Congress. And you can call them. And when they know you're a voter, if you tell them all your families are voters and citizens, and I'm speaking for my brothers and sisters on DED, trust me, something will change. And if they receive an average of 100 calls just a week, which they do not receive it often, except by big liberal groups or some conservative groups, you're going to have an audience with them. And when you have that audience, you educate them about the relations between Liberia and America, and how these people are hard workers, how these people kids are citizens, and how these people are their co-workers and neighbors. You will be changing hearts and minds, and you will be changing the policy for a long time. Thank you, and we thank God for everything. We thank you guys for listening, and let's go and win this for our people and for our country.
Mr. Kyatamba, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate and I enjoy the discussion. Thank you also to our earlier guest, that's Councilor Patricia Minicum. I want to thank all those that are listening via video and also phone. I want to thank those that are on Facebook. I want to say thank you very much. I want to thank my producer, Mrs. Yasendi Martin-Kweye. I also want to thank my product engineer and guest relations manager, Mrs. Stephanie Setro. For all those that are watching by television, I want to say thank you so much and continue to support us. We are at Focus on Liberia. We want to elevate, we want to promote and educate everything Liberia. Until next time, my name is Dennis Ja, and I'm saying good night and God bless you. Yes. I've lived my life in this country. I've worked so hard. I've lived my life in this country. I've worked so hard. Sold my car and my house. Sold my boat and my yacht. Sold everything that I've owned. Made me some money. Now it's time to go home. I must go. Time to go home. Lady say, bye, children. Don't you worry for me to go. Tomorrow I am going home. Bye, children. Don't you worry for me to go. Tomorrow I am going home. Tomorrow I am going home. Tomorrow I am going home. Bye, children. Don't you worry for me to go. Tomorrow I am going home. I've lived my life in this country. I've worked, sweat every day. I've
country. I've work every day. Sold my car and my house, sold my boat and my yacht, sold everything that I own, made me some money. Now it's time to go home. I must go, time to go home. Don't you worry, hey. Bye, children. Don't you worry for me to go. Tomorrow I am going home. Tell somebody. Bye, children. Don't you worry for me to go. Tomorrow I am going home. Tomorrow I am going home. Don't you worry. Tomorrow I am going home. Yes. Bye, children. Don't you worry for me to go. Tomorrow I am going home. Yes. I'm living my life in this country, and I work so hard every day. Say I work so hard in this country, so God has been so good to me. He watch over me every day. He watch over me every night, provide everything that I've owned. Save up my money. Now it's time to go home. Where I'm from, time to go home. Where I belong. Bye, children. Don't you worry for me to go. Tomorrow I am going home. Tell somebody. Bye, children. Don't you worry for me to go. Tomorrow I am going home. Tomorrow I am going home. Tomorrow I am going home. Tell somebody, bye, children. Don't you worry for me to go. Tomorrow I am going home. Hey. Bye, children. Don't you worry for me to go. Tomorrow I am going home. Bye, children. Don't you worry for me to go. Tomorrow I am going home. Tomorrow I am going home. Don't you worry. Tomorrow I am going home. Tell somebody. Bye, children. Don't you worry for me to go. Tomorrow I am going home. Tomorrow I am going home. Tomorrow I am going home. Bye, children. Don't you worry for me to go. Tomorrow